I'm Krisserin Canary.
And I'm Kelton Wright.
Follow our quest to publish our first novels.
From first drafts to query letters,
through inevitable rejection,
and hopefully eventual success.
From California
to Colorado, this is Pen Pals.
Hello, Pen Pals. This is Krisserin. Welcome to a special bonus episode of our podcast. This week, I had the pleasure of speaking with writers, publishers, and literary champions at this year's Association of Writers and Writing Programs Conference in Los Angeles, California, my hometown. And if you've ever been to a convention, you are probably familiar with the fact that the center and front, the booths that are there, are the most expensive and typically are housed by the biggest names in the industry. And so what I chose to do was spend my time on the outside and in the back of the convention center and speak to people who are doing interesting things and really pushing the literary community forward in non-traditional ways. I'll be linking to all of these incredible people and their projects in the show notes. I highly encourage you to check them out. They are truly inspiring and can use your support. What I walked away from these conversations with was the feeling that there truly are so many different paths to publishing, whether it is self-publishing or indie presses. It seems to me that people who truly want their book out in the world can find a way that is satisfying not only to their pocketbooks, but also to their creative spirit. With that, I'm going to let the voices speak for themselves. Join me as we explore this vibrant and diverse world of contemporary literature through these conversations with the people who are shaping it. My first conversation is with Omari Richards. He's the author of The Kimoni Legacy Initiation. He's self-published, and he shares that journey along with his experience at AWP.
So do you want to introduce yourself and the title of your book?
Okay, perfect. Hi, folks. My name is Omari Richards. I'm the author of The Kimoni Legacy Initiation.
Where are you from, Omari?
I am from Baltimore, Maryland, the DMV area.
And is this your first time at AWP?
Oh, yes. It's also my first time in LA in general, so I'm very excited to experience both.
So you're here at AWP with the book that you published,
Yes.
and you self-published your book.
I did.
You want to tell me a little bit about why you made the choice to self-publish and how you've been finding it so far?
Well, for one thing, the book is about 748 pages.
Okay.
So any rational or sane publisher would look at that and say, you have to cut this down to at least 300 or 500 pages.
Mm-hmm.
And then I seriously considered that, but then the more I tried to cut out, the less the story made sense.
Yeah.
There are 3 point of view characters. I even cut out the 2 point of view characters and made it one character story and just divide his story into 3 parts. And then that would have gotten me the traditional publication, but the story was just, so much was lost when it was just one character. So I figured for the whole scope to be shared, it needed to be as long as it is. And because of that, I figured self-publishing will allow me to tell the story the way I feel like it should best be told.
Very cool. And did you work with an editor, or did you just do this all on your own?
Oh, yes. I worked with about 3 or 4 editors. And surprisingly, when I gave the editors the cut down version, they told me, oh, you need to expand on this. You need to expand on this character. You need to expand on this idea. You need to expand on this aspect of the world. And I said, wait, you want me to add more? Isn't the job of the editor to tell me to cut it down? And then they said, the job of an editor is to help the story reach its full potential. And sometimes that means cutting it down. And in this case, it means adding more to it so that all these ideas you have room to breathe, develop, and really be expressed the way you want them to. That gave me the green light to just go 10 toes in and just really go all in on every idea I want to experience. And so far, it's been great.
That's awesome. How did you find your editors?
I went on Reedsy. It's like a website for freelancers of all stages of the publishing process. So you'll find editors there. You'll find developmental editors, or proofreading editors. You'll find cover artists. You'll even find ghostwriters there. So I hired about 3, and they all essentially told me the same thing. Expand on this idea, expand on this character, even add a character. So when you hear three editors tell you the same thing, it's probably a good idea to listen to them.
That's great. That's awesome. Yeah, and for the listeners, you guys can't see the cover art for the novel, but it is really well done. It's really dynamic. It's beautiful, and we'll definitely link to it in the show notes. So in terms of self-publishing, is there anything that you wish you would have known going into it that you know now that you would like to share with people?
Build hype before you are finished with the book.
Okay.
Because for me, I thought it was counterintuitive, because how am I supposed to build hype for something that isn't here yet? I thought the book comes out and then you just build hype and tell people to go out and buy it. But what I'm finding is, especially in the digital age, people have very short-term memories. It's really important to not only light the spark, but keep the spark going as early as possible, so that the idea of your book sticks in the head of all your potential readers. So each time you make a major milestone in the publication process, I finished draft 2, I finished draft 4, I found my editor, I found my alpha readers, I'm looking for beta readers, I have my cover art. All that just sends up a signal, and more people get more hyped about it, because it's the anticipation, and I think the anticipation is the key part of marketing. You can't build anticipation if the thing is already out.
Yeah.
So I'm finding, especially now that I'm working on the second book in the series and another novel, I'm really working to build as much hype as possible, even though I'm not even finished with the first draft of either one.
And are you doing most of that promotion on social media?
Yeah, social media has been both a great equalizer, but also a big crutch, because as great as these algorithms are, they're very finicky.
Right.
You could put out your best video work, your best voice work, your best promotional material, and still get under 200 views. And so you feel very frustrated. But the thing to remember is that's 200 people who stopped by and said, hey, I like what you're doing here. Imagine if you're at a table here at AWP and 200 people come to your table.
Right.
That's going to be amazing.
Right.
But in the social media digital age, that seems very small, because you're seeing people get 20,000 views for 6-second videos.
Right.
So when you're marketing, you just have to keep things in perspective, and you have to really define what success looks for you. Because I've gone quote unquote viral a few times, but for those posts that I got 9,000 or even 10,000 views, only maybe less than 5% of those people crossed over into my book stuff and declared interest that they were buying books. So it's really important to not only build hype, but build your community as you are marketing.
I love that advice. And you said, I love this, that Coney Legacy is like Roots meets Game of Thrones, which is, I think, a fantastic way to describe it. Who are the writers or the authors that made you want to be a writer?
Oh boy, how much time do you have?
Give me 3.
Or
the last book that you absolutely fell in love with.
Okay, classic or contemporary? Let's just do
maybe living authors.
Living authors, okay. N.K. Jemisin was really a really good one. I just love her world building. I love the scope of her worlds and her characters. The Broken Earth trilogy, just A+ all across the board. Another one, obviously George R.R. Martin, because when I went to forums that said, "Oh, I want to write a fantasy. What are some of the books I need to read?" Everyone said A Song of Ice and Fire, and then at the time I thought, well, because when you read the summary, it doesn't really sound like much, and I'm like, I'm not sure how much I'm really going to enjoy this. And then I started reading. I was like, "Oh, now I get it." And then 3, I guess it would be either Milton J. Davis. He is a small-time publisher in Atlanta. He writes books such as Amber and the Hidden City. He does a lot of Afro fantasy himself. So he was a good proof of concept for me, because at the time I was trying to write, I didn't really have a lot of comp titles to really get an idea of what an Afro fantasy would look like. But his books really helped me see that it's not only possible, but this is how you would go about writing it.
Very cool. Tell the people about your book and where they can find it.
Okay. The Kimono Legacy is epic Afro fantasy inspired by cultures of West Africa, their mythology, their folklore, and their history. It tells the story of Kamau, Rizzi, and Maslow. They are members of the powerful Kimoni clan, and they discover that there is a conspiracy building against their clan, and they each branch out to stop it. And along the way, they run into a lot of magic, monsters, demons, traitors, and worse. And it's available on Amazon and my author website, omari-richards.com.
Amazing. Well, congratulations again on your book. 740 pages is something that I definitely love. I read a lot of fantasy and epic fantasy, so I feel like your readers are out there. And I hope you have a very successful AWP, and thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Next up, the undergraduate editors of Rock and Sling Literary Press, Kenzie, Olivia, and Samuel, share with us their hopes for their literary careers.
All right, so I'm here with Rock and Sling Literary Press, is that correct? And you guys are out of which college?
Whitworth University in Spokane, Washington.
And do you guys want to just briefly introduce yourselves?
Yeah, I'm Kenzie. I'm a second-year student. I'm actually not an English major, but I really enjoy the world, and that's why I'm doing all of the editing, extracurricular things that I can.
I'm Olivia. I am a second-year student at Whitworth as well. I am an English major, and I'm also minoring in editing and publishing.
I'm Samuel. I'm a third-year English major at Whitworth, and I'm studying also film and political science.
It's incredible. So you guys were all in undergrad, but you are all writers, is that correct? So I was an English major and political science minor, and I don't think I really came into wanting to write or knowing that I really wanted to be a writer until after college. So I'm really interested to hear about how you guys identify, call yourselves writers, and when you knew that this is what you wanted to do, because I think it's incredible that you're doing it now in undergrad.
Yeah, I think the moment I realized I want to be a writer is whenever my mom would take me to the museum or like the art gallery at Whitworth, because she was an alum. I would be like, I wonder what these people do when I'm not around. So I used to write these stories about the statues and sculptures talking and stuff, and also did puppet shows. And then when I hit the end of middle school, I realized I wanted to do screenwriting and make documentaries. But the only way to get there was to do short stories and poetry and stuff like that. So when I came to Whitworth and found out that there was a literary journal that I could be an assistant editor for, I was like, I got to do this.
Yeah, so I kind of grew up around literature. Both of my parents love reading, and it's something that's always been a huge part of my life. I was homeschooled, and we used a literature-based curriculum. And I also grew up moving a lot, so literary worlds are really what brought me home in a lot of uncertainty. And as I grew up, I started becoming really interested in how to create those worlds on my own and attempting to bring comfort to other people in the way that I had experienced that through literature. And so I kind of always was writing little bits and pieces here and there, like the elementary school like novel that you write 3 chapters of and then leave it alone because you forget about it. But
Elementary school novel.
Yeah.
Stop.
Like I was like in 3rd grade and I had this whole plot drawn out and then I just forgot about it.
You're incredible.
I think when COVID hit is when I started reading poetry just on my own, and I became really interested in like how I could figure out to do that on my own. I'd never really studied poetry in like any sort of specific forms, but like free verse was something that I found to be really cathartic. So I started writing in like 2020, 2021. And then at that point, I knew that I wanted to be an English major and study this as deeply as I could. And I had never really thought about publishing before when I got to Whitworth. But I don't remember who it was like, you should come to a Rock and Sling meeting. And I was like, I have no idea what that is, but I'll be there. And I went, and it was incredible to be able to see how many different, like the variety of writing that we received and were able to discuss in such depth, and just the beauty of it all. And it was shortly after that I added the editing and publishing minor. And yeah, I think through that I've just been incredibly inspired by the writing that I've seen and the raw, like authentic emotion of the things that we receive. I've just been able to see how beautiful that is and implement that into my own writing, whether it be creative nonfiction or poetry. But yeah.
Amazing.
My mom's a math teacher, dad's a firefighter. I'm actually in a pre-physical therapy program myself. And it wasn't really until my junior year of high school in an English class that I really started to care about what I was reading and how I can take the themes from that and apply it to today. And I got really, really invested into developing my own writing and essay writing. So my high school teacher at the time.
What was your teacher's name?
His name's Michael Taylor. He's great. I'm still in contact with him. I send him updates about all the literature and English things I'm doing. But it was through the end of high school that I was like, maybe I'll have the credit room to do a literature minor in college. So I've gotten myself into a groove of creative nonfiction and essay writing. And I'm going to a panel later today for that, which I'm really excited for.
Very cool. And briefly, can you just describe or tell us a little bit about Rock and Sling and what you guys publish?
Yeah, so Rock and Sling is first and foremost a journal of witness. And what that means to us is we think that everyone from every background has a really unique experience, and we want to be able to showcase voices that might not otherwise get heard. So we take a variety of different art forms because people create so differently. So we take poetry, creative nonfiction, fiction, and art, and we are really into and really value things that are raw and vulnerable. And whatever that means to you, that can be a silly little poem, or that can be a really heartfelt and raw creative nonfiction story. We just want to showcase the human experience the best way we can.
Very cool. All right, I have two more questions. The first question, what do you hope your writing career looks like after college? What are you going to do after you graduate with your writing?
I want to do screenwriting very badly. I like using a visual medium of stuff like that. I want to dip my toes into every single genre. I enjoy poetry. I really love creative nonfiction. I love short stories. I love comics. I love stuff like that. So I just hope that I'm able to just explore all of the different ways that writing can appear, but also cultivate and curate examples and collections of other people's writings and my writing.
I love that. And then before you pass on the mic, what's a book you think about all the time?
Oh, a book I think about all the time is Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. I just think it's very beautiful to talk about the post-apocalypse in a way where we're not talking about losing your humanity, but losing the art. I think it's just beautiful to imagine a place that even if the systems fall apart in the ways that I see them happening, the art is a way that can liberate and help us transcend our current moment. So I think about Station 11 all the time, so much. I'm going to see her later today, and it's going to be a full circle moment.
Yeah. Are you going to be okay?
I'm going to be okay. I think I'll be okay. But yeah.
All right, Olivia, same question to you. So what do you hope your writing career looks like after college? And what book can you not stop thinking about?
Like Samuel said, the writing industry is very intimidating and hard to break into. And so I don't know how I truly plan on trying to break into that, but honestly, I just want to stay true to myself and the things that I write. I don't want to feel pressured into following any trends or creating something for other people so much as it is creating something that I need for myself, while also potentially inspiring others. And even if it doesn't reach a crazy audience, just being able to maybe touch the heart of one person through the things that I'm able to create. And a book that this is a little silly, Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I read that for the first time when I was 13, and I'm the oldest of 4 kids, and I have 2 younger sisters. And so when I read that story, I just feel so touched by each and every personality of each sisters. I think it's so wonderful to be able to see who they are and relate to them each in some different way. And I have, I think, 10 copies of Little Women, and I just collect them because I just love it so much.
That's the book that made me want to be a writer.
O is so near and dear to my heart.
Yeah.
And then just seeing how much Louise May Alcott wrote herself into the character too is incredibly inspiring. So decades later, love it. It's great. But
Thank you.
I think as far as where I'd want my writing to go, the biggest thing for me being in a space of the humanities and STEM is helping to bridge the gap between them more, because it feels so polarized, and I don't think it really needs to be. It's a lofty goal, but I've always wanted to get a collection of essays published because that's really what I love to do and what I think I'm good at. So maybe some intentional work towards that at some point. Then a book that I think about all the time, Olivia's heard me talk about this forever, but since high school I've really loved The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Short book, and I've talked to so many people that don't see a lot of depth in it. And I'm like, no, but there's so much going on. And I think that there's a lot of interesting applicability when you think about today's political and social structure to think about, wow, the story written in the 20s about the 20s and its grandiosity and themes of desire and gender and sexuality and interpersonal relationships, when we know historically what came immediately after the Roaring 20s. And every time I read it, I pick out something new or learn something new or can relate it in a new way to what we're experiencing right now.
Amazing. Well, this is such an inspiring conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time. And as an older writer, I think my one piece of advice to all of you is just keep writing and don't be discouraged, because you do have really important stories to tell. I think everyone has their own unique story. No one can tell it the way that you do. So congratulations on knowing what you want to do so young, and I wish you the best in all of your writing careers. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now for a conversation with writer and managing and founding editor of Angel City Review, Zachary Jensen.
Please tell me your name,
My name is Zachary Jensen.
where you work, or what you publish.
I'm the managing and founding editor of Angel City Review.
You're based in Los Angeles.
Yes.
Are you from LA?
Yep, born and raised.
Where were you born?
Well, I was born in the very edge of LA in Pomona.
Okay, I was born in West Covina.
Okay. I live in Sun Valley, but nobody knows where that is.
I know where that is.
Okay, so you know.
Yeah.
If I say Sun Valley, a lot of times people think Sunlands.
No.
And I tell them it's landfills and junkyards, not rednecks.
It's a great description. What do you write?
Primarily, I do prose, but begrudgingly, the majority of my publications are poetry.
Okay. What draws you to poetry?
I don't write a terribly large amount of poetry. Just when I feel like it, I write it. I don't know. I think it's easier to evoke a certain feeling or emotion when you're writing poetry. But like with nonfiction, I think I get to cover and explore larger things. My main book project is I'm writing a kind of experimental memoir of the time when I took care of my grandma when she had dementia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what other topics do you like to cover? I'm sorry about your grandma. I love how it's
Yeah,
your
like, let's
grandmother.
move on.
Yeah, let's just move on to the next topic.
I
mean, being a caretaker is a real thing, so I can understand how that would make a very compelling memoir and
Yeah.
something that a lot of people can relate to. So.
And then fiction, I kind of just like think of like fantastical ideas in my head, rather than for poetry. It'll usually be more of those very snapshot moments of life, like those feelings that you feel like, and then it's gone. So I like to explore those. It could be something as simple as heartbreak, or just something that you were thinking about pensively. And
What compels you to start the Angel City Review?
I just wanted to contribute to something, be a literary citizen, I guess, as it were. And I was part of an open mic at a bar for many years in Echo Park, and that was fun. And I was like, oh, let me just do something too. And so I started it one day as I was wrapping up grad school, and then just been doing it ever since.
Very cool. What do you publish in the Angel City Review?
So one day we're special. We're not themed. So some people end up thinking, oh, it has to be writing about LA. We publish people from all over. We do poetry, fiction, nonfiction. We especially emphasize that we're interested in the diverse voices. A lot of journals are very white.
Yeah.
True. Yeah. And it's actually, I find like they're either very white or they're intentionally 100% not white.
Sure.
And I'd prefer that over very white. And so we do a good mix of things. One thing I'm proud of is we have the very last poem that Dan Fonte ever wrote. As John Fonte's son. He submitted to us, and then he passed 6 months later.
It was pretty recent he passed away.
Yeah.
If people want to submit to you, what
we're
should they
going to be opening at the end of April, so the end of April until like the end of summer. And we'd love more prose. We get a lot of poetry, but we don't get that many stories. And when we do, it's hard to craft a good story. So if we're only getting 10 stories, we're not going to necessarily have the ones that work for us.
Right.
But we'd love more.
Last question. What is a book that you can't stop thinking about?
Let's see. I return to Roberto Bolaño's work a lot.
You have a favorite?
Savage Detectives. It's very long of his books. It's one of the longer ones, but I love the notion in Latin American literature that closure isn't something that everybody gets. I think that is a very Western European notion that I need closure in this relationship. I need closure in this event. It just doesn't happen.
Life doesn't work that way.
It doesn't.
No.
A lot of the times you just don't know why it ended. You're not going to get to know why. And I love that a lot of his work, and especially a lot of other Latin American writers, like their work encompasses that.
Where can people go to find Angel City Review?
AngelCityReview.com is our main, and then all our issues we release as a free ebook.
Okay. Very cool. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
I hope it was fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was bearable. I hate my recorded voice, so I apologize. I'm not going to listen to this.
That's fine. That's fine. You don't have to.
And now we hear from Harrison Gale at the Book Incubator, which is an MFA alternative program. She tells us a little bit about the program, the classes, and about the book she's working on, although we don't want to talk about it too much because, writers are superstitious.
Please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the Book Incubator.
My name is Harrison Gale. I am the creative and business director of the Book Incubator. And the Book Incubator is an MFA alternative program. So it's geared towards writers who are looking for concrete support in writing a full-length manuscript, novel, or memoir. And we were founded by Mary Adkins, who is a 3-time HarperCollins novelist. She's also one of our lead instructors. We're also led by Rufy Thorpe, who's the author of Margot's Got Money Troubles, and our memoirist in residence is Greg Marshall, who's the author of Leg.
How long have you been working at the Book Incubator?
I've been working at the Book Incubator since the very beginning, so that was almost 4 years ago. Our birthday is going to be April 2025, and that's going to be 4 years, but I've been there since the very beginning.
You mentioned an MFA alternative. Why is it important to have an MFA alternative besides the fact that they're very expensive and exclusive?
Yes, I would say it's very important to have an MFA alternative because, and no shade to the MFA, there's plenty to learn.
Shade them. It's okay. They're expensive.
They are expensive. Part of the genesis of the program when Mary was developing this, so she was thinking about doing an MFA years ago. She had graduated law school, decided that she didn't really want to be a lawyer after being a lawyer she likes to say I was a lawyer for 5 minutes. Tale as old as time. And she was taking some writing classes, thinking about doing an MFA, and she got accepted to a couple of programs, but then she realized when she was looking at the curriculum of these programs, she felt like they didn't offer concrete guidance on actually writing and publishing a book. That, of course, a lot of it was focused on developing writing techniques that also tended to be very specific. That this is something that we've heard from a lot of people who've done MFAs, or they feel like there's a particular writing style that is very narrow. It is the only thing that's accepted, quote unquote, as like the kind of style to write in. And she wanted a space where she could discover her own voice, didn't have to adhere to a particular standard of her professor or program, and that also gave her more guidance in actually publishing the book. So she took what she learned from publishing her first novel called When You Read This, which came out in 2019. She took what she learned from that process, and it took her 6 years to find an agent for that manuscript. And it went through so many versions.
Super encouraging for people to hear.
Yeah, people need to hear this. It's a long and arduous process sometimes. Like people think like, oh, write the book and I'll get it done on shelves in a year. Like this, it's a long man's game. But it took her 6 years. And when she finally did it, she was like, I don't want this process to be this difficult for other people who are in my position. I want to make it easier for them. There was so much that she learned about like writing query letters. Like she was like, the first query letters I wrote were terrible. Like they weren't specific. I was like spraying and praying. And of course, like she wasn't getting the results that she wanted. And so she said, if I can create something that can streamline the process for people and also help them discover a creative process that was repeatable so they can keep writing books and keep using a process that works for them, you know, that's something that she became very passionate about. And then the Book Incubator was born.
It was
incubated
and then birthed.
Yes, exactly.
Very nice. Tell me a little bit about your writing.
Yeah, so I am also a writer. You know, my full-time job is being a creative and business director of the program, but I'm also currently working on my debut novel, which I'm a little superstitious about.
Let's talk about it.
But I will
Writers
say,
are superstitious folk.
yeah, we know this,
Yes.
But I will say it is I would say, comedy mystery
Ooh.
that's set in 1971 Los Angeles.
I love it.
So a little bit of historical fiction, a little bit of mystery in there.
What classes are coming up that people should know about that are exciting?
That is a great question. Our curriculum has a couple of different pillars, and we cycle through them, and then occasionally there's like a special workshop that we'll do every once in a while. But Mary teaches writing the first draft. There are 24 writing lessons that she feels are essential. Part of the philosophy of the book incubator is, again, streamlining the process. So not overloading people with material, but just focusing on what we think is going to be like the game changer stuff. So for example, like one workshop of hers that I love is called the 3 mindsets: writing, revising, and editing. She helps work out how to shift your brain into these different mindsets. And she's also got another one called Anatomy of a Scene, which breaks down writing a scene into building blocks so that you can orient your reader and make it easier for them to understand and get into the meat of the scene so you're not leaving them confused. Then Rufi teaches 24 revision lessons. That's her wheelhouse. One of my favorites of hers is called Bleeding on Pizza Napkins: How to Use Details to Supercharge a Scene, which I love. She's also got another workshop on using a variety of perspectives on a big philosophical question in your book to enrich your characters and create more texture and natural conflict. And then Greg Marshall is our memoirist in residence, and he hosts a monthly Q&A in the program that's geared specifically for our memoirists in the program. So we've got something for everybody at any point in the process.
That's incredible. All right, last question. What's a book that you can't stop thinking about?
Oh my gosh, a book that I can't stop thinking about. I recently read Piranesi by Susanna Clark, and I just I put that down and I just can't stop thinking about it.
What is it about that book that is unforgettable?
I hadn't read something like that in such a long time that was so inventive, but also it's a fantasy, but it's so grounded in the human condition. I felt like I was having an existential crisis at the time I was done with it, but it was just so moving and so human, and just kind of imagining a world outside of our reality that still feels really concrete. I just had never read anything like it, so it's gonna stick with me. And it's also a quick read, so we love somebody who can get in and out of there.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Where can people find the book incubator?
So we have a website. We're at thebookincubator.com, and then we're also on Instagram, so you can find us at book.incubator.
And now I hope you enjoy my interview with Avidus B. Carl, the author of These Worn Bodies from Moon City Press.
I caught eyes with this beautiful woman at AWP with her gorgeous purple hair, and she drew me into her booth, and all of these books are incredible, so I just wanted to chat. Please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Moon City Press.
Yes, so my name is Avidus B. Carl. I have a flash fiction collection out with Moon City Press, and Moon City Press is out of Missouri, Springfield, Missouri to be specific. They have the press, which I'm with, Moon City Press, and then they also have their review, Moon City Review, which publishes flash fiction. I think they do poetry and nonfiction as well. But I am one of the authors from the press, and my flash fiction collection came out November 1st, 2024, and I'm here at AWP selling it.
Oh my God! Congratulations!
Thank you.
How's it going? How's AWP been for you?
It's been fantastic.
Okay,
this
good.
is my first year having a book at AWP. And
so it's not your first year at AWP?
No, I've been to AWP before. The first one I went to was in DC, and that was several years ago. And I've been coming back ever since. It's just an excellent environment to get to know writers, meet new writers, get off of social media for once and see each other face to face. But now that I'm here with a book, it's a completely different experience. I have to sell stuff. And it's very strange, which is why I have purple hair.
It was intentional.
Yes, I need to grab people's attention,
and then it works.
I get them in, and I'm like an anglerfish. Look at my purple hair, and hear about my flash fiction collection.
Let's hear about your flash fiction collection.
Yes,
tell me about it.
These Worn Body is a flash fiction collection, 61 stories, all told from the point of view of women and girls. I have varying lengths of flash fiction, which flash fiction can be anywhere from 100 words to 1,000 words. So I have a story in there that's one sentence long, and then I have one in the form of a crossword puzzle, a resume. I have a paragraph long story. I got third person, first person, second person, 4-page story. I got a mix of everything for you.
Tell me about flash fiction because I'm a novelist.
Okay.
I write
Long.
really long books.
Long.
And I always see these contests and calls for flash fiction, and I feel like you have to be so good to write something that short. So what draws you to flash fiction as a medium?
I like the preciseness of it. So I really have to focus in on that moment in order to keep my readers interested. I don't have the room or the word count to really go into like the setting and the exposition and the background and all this stuff. So I really have to focus on that real one moment right before the shift happens within the story and everything changes either for the character or for the setting or whatever I'm writing about. So flash fiction, I really just love the like length constraints because it really forces me to focus.
I love that. And tell us about the journey to publication for you, how you found Moon City Press, what that whole process was like.
I've been a long time admirer of Moon City Press and Moon City Review, and I do have two stories in Moon City Review, and they published me in there, and I saw that they had a contest going, and I was like, oh, I have a lot of stories told from the point of view of women and girls. Why don't I put that in a collection and see what happens? Submit it to them. I did that. I won the contest, and here I am.
And here she is.
At AWP.
So you were saying it kind of feels weird to be selling your book.
Yes.
Talk about that a little bit, because self-promotion is part of being an author.
Yes.
And it's kind of, we hide in our cave and we like work on our little stories, and then we're supposed to go out in the world and sell them now?
Apparently, I was happy in my cave and let everyone else do the work. Like, I'm not a publicist. I don't know how to shout from the rooftop that I have a book for sale. But I made stickers and I got the magnets together, and writers were really drawn to the magnets. Like, they're loving this whole, like, oh, I haven't actually drafted or edited or submitted, and here's the reason why. So it's really just figuring out what merchandise goes best with your book. You can hear that I'm also losing my voice.
Yeah.
It's a lot of talking.
Yeah. I won't keep you too long. You've got books to sell.
Yes.
I would love
doing the work.
Doing the work. What is a book that you cannot stop thinking about?
Tilly Walden writes a lot of graphic novels like Fun Home and all. Well, not Fun Home, but that's Alison Bedell. I can't stop thinking about that one either. But Tilly Walden, I'm in graphic novels right now. There's actually a graphic novel table here at AWP that I'm trying to get back to. I'm just in my graphic novel memoir mood right now. So Jackie DeMenace, No Offense memoir just came out recently. Loved it. Can't get enough.
Where can people find your book, and where can people learn more about Moon City Press?
Yes, so you can find my book through uapress.com. You can also find it through mooncitypress.com. It's on their website. And then you can just visit Moon City Review on their website if you want to submit. Do all the fun things. They're on all the social medias. And I'm Avitus B. Carl everywhere.
I met Veronica Bustamante on the first day of AWP and just had to go back for a follow-up conversation. Veronica introduced me to the low residency MFA at the Institute of American Indian Arts. Tommy Orange teaches there. My former mentor, Ramona Asubel, also teaches there. And it's, I would say, probably one of the best priced low residency MFAs out there. So I was really excited to learn more about this amazing program.
Hello. Hi, good to see you again.
Thank you for coming back.
Of course. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
You're welcome. I'm glad that I captured your attention and your interest in our institution.
Please tell me your name and the name of the institution that you work for.
Veronica Bustamante. I am the MFA program coordinator for the creative writing department at IIA. I am not a writer. I'm actually out of my comfort zone. However, I am acclimating to being surrounded by so many phenomenal writers, and not only the writers, but our students. I feel like I've built this relationship with them that has inspired me to really want to be a little bit more proactive and continue doing some more reading as I continue with my studies as well. I'm also a student at IAIA. I'm going for my bachelor's in fine arts in museum studies.
So the program is a low residency MFA program.
That is correct. It is a 2-year residency program. There is a residency January for 1 week. In July, we also have a second residency for 1 week. And then the students get paired up with their mentors and they do their online programming.
And how long has the program been in existence?
That is a very good question. I want to say maybe a good 10 years. I think it's fair to say. And then we also have the master's program in studio arts and also in cultural administration.
What type of students are you looking for?
It is a very diverse college, so anyone that is interested in attending IA is welcome to attend.
So you don't have to have any tribal affiliation or anything
No, ma'am.
to be a student?
No, ma'am. However, there are perks if you are tribal affiliated. There are scholarships that are available if you're federally recognized, and merit-based scholarships are available, and financial aid is also available.
And what's the focus of the program?
The focus of the program is to empower creativity, leadership, and Indigenous arts and culture through higher education, lifelong learning, and community engagement.
Incredible. When is the application deadline?
The application deadline is February the 15th, and that is every year. And that would be for the term of fall 26, our upcoming term.
Perfect. That's perfect. Thank you so much for your time.
Welcome.
Thank you for telling me about the program.
And now Chiwan Choi from Writ Large Projects shares with us why we no longer need permission to publish our work.
My name is Chiwan Choi.
And you are here with?
Writ Large Projects.
Tell me about Writ Large Projects.
Writ Large Projects is an indie press that started over 15 years ago as Writ Large Press, just to put out 1 or 2 books a year. We just became a nonprofit because the Allegheny County in Pennsylvania gave us a 5,000 square foot building to open a bookstore and research lab.
What are you going to research?
Education, technology for writers and readers.
That's really cool.
We have the best time because it doesn't stop us from doing events, creating spaces where people could gather, have fun, enjoy art. Historically, we published mostly poetry, but our most recent 3 books that just came out Wednesday, it's a horror novel, which is a first for us, debut poetry collection, and a debut short story collection that's speculative fiction.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So you kind of just, doesn't matter what genre?
The genre is not that important to us. It's just the writer is more important. Yeah.
Any advice for people who are really hoping to get into publishing?
My biggest advice, I say this to everyone, including teenagers or whatever, is 2025. Publish your own work. If you're still looking down on self-publishing as some inferior thing, then you just gotta change your mind about that, because that's old establishment structure. We don't need that. We don't need permission to publish our work.
So how does someone do that if they don't know how to access it? Do you encourage them to hire an editor or just do everything on their own?
Right now, my first recommendation is, even before doing that, start a newsletter. You could share pages from it. You could just share thoughts, just so you get used to the idea that you're in control of your work and how it gets out there. I think that's the most important thing for me,
Now, if you're living in New York, you might be interested in this next conversation with Flo from Wendy Subway, which is an arts and literary organization in Brooklyn that hosts all kinds of readings and workshops. Flo shares with us upcoming programming and other opportunities for publication.
My name is Flo. I have been at Wendy Subway for about 4 years. I work on the programming side of things, so not so much the editorial side of things, but Wendy Subway is an arts and literary organization based in Brooklyn. We have a library space and a reading room that people can come and spend time in. And we also publish a range of poetry books and artist books, mostly working with emerging writers and all kinds of different artists. We also host different types of events like poetry readings or screenings, as well as a whole range of writing workshops, reading groups, listening sessions.
What are your goals for AWP?
We want to just meet more writers and have more writers be acquainted with what Wendy Subway is and what we do. I feel like just because we work with visual artists and interdisciplinary artists in addition to writers, I feel like what we do is unique. And so, I don't know, I feel like there's like a desire for that.
What type of writing are you looking for?
We're mostly looking for like hybrid genre works and things that are a little bit more experimental. Every year we do 2 open calls, one where we solicit completed manuscripts and another one where we ask for unfinished projects. And so that's one way that people can submit their work.
Unfinished projects.
Being this space in Brooklyn, it's been around for 11 years at this point, acquainted with alternative or experimental publishing and artist, small press, artist book sort of scene in New York. We have connections, and we are happy to offer mentorship to emerging writers, and we know that it's difficult to break into that world. And so, yeah, that was part of it. And the Carolyn Bush Award, Carolyn Bush was one of the founders of Wendy Subway. So it's like a way that we're honoring her and remembering her.
Is there anything upcoming that you would want people to know about and just keep an eye out for?
In May, we'll do a workshop on criticism with Hannah Black. That'll be online. We'll be at the LA Art Book Fair as well. That's happening in the middle of May.
And what type of art do you do?
I'm a writer and I'm also a visual artist.
I wrapped up this interview series with another former Emerging Voices fellow, Chelsea Hodson of Rose Books, who's not only publishing incredibly exciting new voices through Rose Books and through the Rose Reader, but also has a vibrant writing community through her morning writing club, which you can participate in and subscribe to, and I highly recommend you do.
Let's just make sure that the sound is coming through.
Testing. Perfect.
Okay. Hi, Chelsea.
Hi.
How's it going?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great. How's AWP?
It's good. I'm here as a publisher for the first time, and it's really exciting to meet especially the reader contributors in person. We just put out the Rose Books Reader, and a lot of the writers are here, and so that's been really special and cool.
So this is the first time you're meeting them?
Exactly. And Katie, my managing editor, did a lot of the editing and accepting of the pieces, but it's been so great for me to read them and then meet these people in person. It's great.
That's
so
incredible.
And it's great too because people are actually reading it. Like I've received some feedback that, sometimes when you publish something, it feels like it goes out to crickets.
Yeah.
And I think people are actually reading the reader, and that really excites me and makes me want to keep doing it. It's very validating.
Talk a little bit about Rose Books. What was the impetus for starting it? How long have you been doing it?
I taught a workshop with my friend Giancarlo Di Trapano, who died in 2021, but he ran this really great press called Tyrant Books. And in his absence, I started thinking that I could maybe adopt some of his ethos of saying fuck you to certain elements of publishing and do your own thing, because you can just do that. And you don't need to be a millionaire to do it. You can do it in a way and at a pace that makes sense. So I started really seriously thinking about it, but I didn't really feel ready. And then I read this book, Someone Who Isn't Me by Jeff Rickley, and I approached him with the idea. I said, this is an amazing book. He was running into some roadblocks with publishing it. And I said, I think we could do this together. And he instantly agreed. He was like, yes, let's do it. And that started it off. And now that book is in its 10th printing and it sold over 10,000 copies. I knew that book would resonate with people. So that gives me a certain level of confidence to be like, yeah, I want to keep finding books that I feel like I could provide the right home for, and that might not get published in a different capacity. Like, I know that book would have been published in some form, but I think the way we did it resonated with readers and his audience of people who know him through music.
Talk a little bit about the difference between the path of publishing through an indie versus a traditional path.
A traditional path always requires an agent, which I find frustrating. When I'm coaching writers or working with writers, it's like that's the only way in, and that is a bit gatekeepery. And what I find frustrating is that publishing goes through trends in this way, that it's like, oh, suddenly the type of book you've spent years working on isn't popular. And so it's hard for you to find an agent. And I find that so frustrating because it's just a trend. And I think every book has a level of readership it could have if marketed the right way. So much is on the writer, no matter if you're going on the indie path or the kind of like big 5, big 4 path. But I find indie publishing really exciting because my first chapbook was published with an indie, and I think only 300 copies were made. I got paid in copies of it. That changed my life. Like, it set me on a path to publish my essay collection. And I just saw the power of a couple hundred books. If that gets into the right hands and suddenly you're known as a writer and everything starts to change. I ended up getting an agent from that indie publishing experience. I was interested in pursuing whatever was possible for me. But I always have love in my heart for indie publishing and just think so much is possible when we're not confined by the boundaries of what's popular or what's cool.
Or what can sell and what's marketable.
Yes, exactly.
Which feels like it is kind of an art killer, right?
Always. Like I just think it's such a shame that some writers have to be thinking about these marketing demands in order to make a living, so it's like, yes, these two have to intersect in some way, but I think indie publishing offers a more flexible model in some ways to write the book that you were born to write.
I love that. And so what types of books are Rose Books looking for?
I have published 2 novels and 1 book of poetry. So I'm not really confined by genre, and I kind of know so many writers behind the scenes, and I edit books behind the scenes outside of Rose Books, that manuscripts have a way of finding me. So I haven't opened for submissions publicly for books because I only publish 2 books a year, including the reader. So it doesn't leave much room for that open submission period, but at some point in the future I will. Rose Books Reader, it's part magazine, part anthology. It's kind of more like a magazine, but I just don't want to commit to publishing it at a certain frequency.
Okay, fair enough.
So it's a reader that comes out when I have time to do it.
Tell me about the books that you have out right now and where people can find them.
The first book is called Someone Who Isn't Me by Jeff Rickley. And it's kind of like Dante's Inferno if the book took place in the back of a tour van. It's amazing. And so that's the book that made me start the press. It's now in its 10th printing. The second book I published is called The Holy Day. It's by Christopher Norris, who's known as an artist under the moniker Stake Mountain. And his book, he and I have talked about it as it functions as a trap. It kind of sucks you in and it resists the reader in certain ways. It's like a very active, adventurous book.
I love that.
And Fake Pinata is a very different book from those. It's a book of poetry, mainly about heartbreak and the longing to find a sense of home in a place. So it's like a quieter book, more feminine in certain ways. And then we have the Rose Books Reader. So that's the 4th book. And then I have a book coming out this fall called Writer's Diary by a playwright named Matthew Gazda. The book of aphorisms about the writing life, doing plays in the theater scene in New York City in 2025. It's like he has kind of a 1970s sensibility, but he's in modern day, and so he's kind of reacting to the culture in a way I haven't seen anyone do. So it's coming out in the fall.
Tell me a little bit about the Morning Writing Club.
MorningWritingClub.com is a site I do that's $9 a month and offers the kind of resources I wish were available to me for that cost like 10 years ago. So I try to create resources based on what I think I either needed or do need. So the foundation of it is a 2-hour accountability Zoom every weekday morning. And we all write together, and some people are members but don't attend that morning Zoom. And I do conversations with authors. Some of it is based on my experience with the Penn Center USA Emerging Voices program of like the opportunity to meet and talk with other authors was so valuable to me. And so I try to offer that on Zoom so that you can live anywhere and do that.
It's incredible. Do you have any exciting talks coming up that people would want to subscribe for?
Yeah, I have a writer named Sarah Hoover who wrote this book, The Mother Lode, about her experiences with postpartum depression. And it's her first memoir, and it doesn't read that way. It's like a really great, raw book. So I'm talking to her on April 8th. And then I also offer agent meetings every couple of months. I have agents come for an hour, and then I host 15-minute meetings with members of the group to either pitch or just ask questions or get feedback on a query letter. So that's been very productive. I've offered, I think, about 50 meetings to different members in the past year, and one of them did sign with the agent because of the meeting. So that's kind of wild.
That's incredible.
Thanks.
How's your writing going?
It is, it's hard to explain because it's like there's so much else going on. And I've found that advocating for other people's work as a publisher, it's sometimes hard to fit in your own work because you get so caught up in committing to like, how can I best publish this book? So in a way they are opposing forces, but it's like, I still want to be a writer. So I just kind of find ways to fluctuate between the two. But the Morning Writing Club is helpful for me. It's like, I realized that when I was coaching writers, I would always show up for them if I had a meeting with them. But when I showed up for my own writing, sometimes I would skip it. And if I was too tired or I didn't feel like it. And I know that other people have that problem.
There's a difference between disappointing yourself and disappointing someone else,
yes,
right? So
exactly.
That's incredible. Well, congratulations on those books and on your writing club. Do you have any advice for our listeners who are trying to get their first book out there and are feeling discouraged and need some words of wisdom?
It's so hard. And I talk about this a lot in Morning Writing Club. So I would say, if you're feeling discouraged, look for a community, if not mine, just somewhere else. Like, I think a lot of people find encouragement in a space like this where we realize like we're all in it together. We're all devoting our lives to art in some way, even though that's difficult. And just remember, the path to publication might not look the way that you thought it would look. There's so many kind of twists and turns and things we don't anticipate, that the success I see for people that have longer paths to publication is a lot about flexibility, where they're saying, this isn't exactly what I envisioned, but I see now that it could work for me because of this. And it's like, you have to, in some ways, relinquish the control that you have over the manuscript as you're working on it for yourself. You have to submit, like it's like the verbiage around it is so informative. You have to submit, you have to be under consideration, and it's so frustrating. But I would say for people that feel alone in it, like, try to find other people who are in a similar position and try to find resources to learn about your position. And I do sometimes recommend to people who are querying without the response that they're looking for, consider indies. Consider if that's a path for you, and just like be open to it and think about what that would mean for you.
Thank you so much for those wonderful words of wisdom. Tell us again where we can find information about Rosebooks and your writing.
So Rosebooks is rosebooks.co, and then Morning Writing Club is morningwritingclub.com. And then I'm on social media under Chelsea Hodson.
Incredible. Thank you so much, Chelsea.
Thank you. It's so good to see you.
So good to see you.
This last clip is not an interview, but a recording of Amy Brill giving a toast at an offsite happy hour called Girly Drinks. Amy opens with a quote from Matt Weiland, who is the VP and senior editor at W.W. Norton & Company, and closes with a call to action to remind us all why we're writing and how important it is to continue to tell our stories.
He said, "It's so easy to be demoralized about everything right now. And God knows it's always been easy to be demoralized about the path to publishing. It can seem so long, so dark, so unlikely to lead anywhere. But writers of every level should know that there are legions of editors looking for them, spending their days and nights ignoring the news and their kids to read submissions in the hopes of finding that magical manuscript they cannot bear not to champion. Even then, it doesn't necessarily yield a contract and money and all of that stuff, let alone a hit. But the thing is, that editor is there. Of course, the path should be better lit and less mystifying, and it should be easier to match author with publisher, book with reader, but there is a magic to writing. So maybe it's fitting, but there is a magic to publishing too. Every writer worth the name and every editor ought to believe in both." Yay! I found that really inspiring and really important to hear. Like, I think that no matter where you're at in your journey, it's really nice to think there's someone out there waiting for my words. And the last thing I want to say is that after the election, I was really struggling to tell my daughters to know what to say. They're old enough. If they look at the news, they know the deal. They're worried. They're anxious, like everyone else. And what I told them was that we're just going to carry on. Like, we're going to do the things we've always done. We're going to support each other. We're going to love each other. We're going to tell each other our stories. We're going to take care of the people in our communities who need help and support. We're going to stand up for each other. We're going to keep doing that because that's what our people have always done. That's what every woman on this fucking earth has always done. They've gone on through all kinds of oppression and hardship and war, and they have fucking made dinner and made sure their kids played outside and everybody drank water and done all the things, exactly. And I told them that, and then I was thinking about it, and I know that they did that, but I don't know the details because they didn't write it down. Like, my people were not writers. They were not people who left journals or letters or books behind. And so if we want the people who follow us to understand what life is and what our struggles are and how we get through them, we have to write it down. And so that got me back on track as a writer, and it has helped me immensely, and I hope that all of you remember that and get to it.
Yes.
I hope that these conversations inspire you as much as they inspired me. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next week with Kelton on our next episode of Pen Pals.